So this is a program on civic participation. And the League, of course, promotes civic participation because, as we've discovered, democracy just doesn't happen by itself. Just because it started doesn't mean it's going to continue without the efforts of citizens. And we as citizens have to contribute and work to make a democracy work. And there are many, many ways to contribute. And so in this program tonight, we're going to talk about some of them. And one of them is really relevant, which is election judges, because we are in the midst of an election season. There was an election yesterday, although just in Urbana. And in April 1st, there'll be a general election or consolidated election for school boards, township officials, village and city officials. And so I wanted to remind you as we go through the program tonight, the election judges are going to be talking about their experience, but you ought to think about what you want to do for the April that you want to remember to vote, make a plan for voting, and check out our voters guide. There'll be a lot of good information there. So this first part of the program is about election judges, and then the second part is going to be with the mayors, Diane, Marlin, and Deb Feinen, talking about other kinds of civic participation opportunities. So to start with, if you could just introduce yourself, Holly, you can start. You're muted right now, I think. Maybe we'll start with
Thank you. Oh, sure.
Go
Sorry
ahead.
about that. Yeah, I'm Holly Rosencranz. I am so delighted to joined the League of Women Voters in the past year, and I am a retired physician specializing in internal medicine. So I've remained active teaching part-time at the medical school in Carroll, Illinois College of Medicine, and as well as teaching students in molecular and cellular biology. And my focus is on kind of helping to promote sustainability. I'm very passionate about climate change and health impacts and sustainable innovation. So I'm really, and I took on becoming an election judge to try to do my part in civic engagement.
So kind of a reminder to all of us that you can be busy and still volunteer. I guess that's really, really part of your message. Kristine, you want to introduce yourself and talk about your election experience?
Love to. Again, also, thank you for having me. I am a licensed architect by trade, and I worked here in Champaign until I retired about 5 years ago, and now work as a real estate agent. And being involved in the community and knowing what's happening in the community is so important for both of the careers I've had. But I was also just raised on, I was raised that you volunteer, you have to help in your community. And it's important to me that I do that. And voting is such an important role that we can take in helping guide our communities. And being an election judge really helps in making sure that can happen.
So, Diza, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Diza Baryshnikov. I'm a high school junior at University Laboratory High School on campus. I've been a student ambassador with League of Women Voters for I think it's since August of 2024, and I've just found it so fun, and I'm so excited to be here. But I became an election judge for this past election. It was my first time doing it, and it was sort of just like I'd been really interested during sort of the major election of like, as a high schooler, what can you do since like the youth we're going to be we're sort of the future of what is happening, and then it's like we don't have as much of a say in it, like especially like 16, 17, where you're sort of aware of it, but you're not able to control much of it. So I stumbled across the volunteering as an election judge, and I completed the training, and I was really excited to do it. So
yeah, and so it hasn't been long that students. Are you 18 yet? No,
no,
Okay,
I'm
it
not.
hasn't been
Yeah.
long that students and people who are not yet 18 can volunteer as election judge. So, do you think that how do you see it as a good opportunity, or how do your fellow students see it?
Well, I think, like I was saying before, it's sort of there's some lack of control, but then like increase in awareness that you have when you're sort of around that age or like the end of high school. And it's sort of having this opportunity to sort of like see how the election process works and sort of take your own part in it, where you're actually like processing the votes. Well, not processing them, but you're processing the voters, and you're giving them a ballot, and you're explaining stuff to them about like circling it, like fill in all of the dots. And I think it's just it like it gives you an opportunity to have not like not some literal sense of control, but sort of some power in the situation, where you can sort of like take like some energy that you would have had, or like some political like passion that you have, and then you can sort of like put it out and really help people.
Mhm. And thank you for finding your way into the webinar. Do you want to talk about what kinds of things that you've done as an election of judge or observer, or all the volunteer activities you do with elections?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ann Frisland. I'm also a league member. And one of the things that I did for these last couple of elections was serve as a poll watcher. And I don't know how many of you have done that, and perhaps you did it at an actual polling location. And that's not what I did. In 2024, 7 members of our Voter Ready outreach team decided we wanted to serve as league poll watchers in the mail ballot processing center at the clerk's office. Our goal really was to see firsthand how mail ballots are processed. We kind of knew, but we had never seen it actually done. Since we all speak often to other groups in the community and questions come up, we wanted to make sure that we really understood how mail ballots are processed. And we also individually wanted to be better informed on that part of the election. Tricia, do you want me to go on and explain some of the things we learned and what the value is?
Sure. We'll start with that, and then other people can share what they've learned as the conversation goes on.
Sure, I'll be glad to. So like any poll watcher, we observed the process, although our situation did not include any actual voters. We watched trained election staff and election judges from both parties use ballot sorting and opening machines to move the envelopes with their ballots through every required step. One thing that I think was really eye-opening to all of us was that we actually saw the judges in the processing center make exactly the same kinds of checks that anyone would see when they are in a regular polling location, because the steps are really exactly the same. A bit different order, but the same checks. For example, in the first step, the automated sorting machine also photographs the back of each mail ballot envelope. So it takes a picture of each voter's signature and their personally identifying barcode. Before any of those envelopes is opened, judges from both parties sit in front of a large screen to review images of the voter's signature on the envelope against the signature on file to make sure that it's the same person. Their dedication to providing a thorough review was really impressive. We watched judges one from each party discuss and compare the two signatures. We learned that these judges can access images of voters' signatures from previous elections so that they can take a look at the pattern that is established through the voters' signatures. And as we know, there are sometimes changes. based on age or perhaps some kind of physical issue. So the judges are looking at all of this signature information. And what was interesting is that if one judge, one of the two, decides that the signatures do not match, that envelope is set aside and not processed at all. It's turned into a situation of review that sometimes includes contacting the voter for confirmation that they are indeed the same person. We also learned that just like at any in-ballot polling or in-person polling location, the ballots are initialed by judges and cast into tabulators. Those mail ballots are not counted and votes are not known till after the polls actually close on election day. One of the things that we all came away from is the thought that for anyone who is skeptical about the security of voting by mail, we'd recommend becoming a poll watcher, either for a political party, for the league, or other approved civic organizations, and watching and doing what we did. Just so you know, poll watchers, all they need to do is be registered to vote somewhere in Illinois. It doesn't even have to be our county. We came away from our experience feeling much more confident that election security was the most important thing in the mail ballot process. We're confident that those who select that method of voting are indeed eligible to vote and that their vote will in fact be counted. I think that all 7 of us who did this poll watching came away much better informed, much more knowledgeable about the election process, and it reinforced our confidence in how ballots are handled in Champaign County, whether in person or by mail.
Thank you, Anne. You know, I know that in Illinois and in this county that people can register to vote on the day of voting. And so I imagine that creates some issues for election judges. Does anyone want to talk about their experiences with people coming in to vote, to register at the same day they're voting? Any of you can start talking, Diza.
I definitely found a lot of issues with that, especially at my polling place. I wasn't at one of the sort of main student polling places like the Union, but I was definitely at a place where a lot of people who were sort of like dismayed from the line at the Union came to, and so we just found just like, I don't know, I think it was about 100 people who had to have grace registration, which is like same day registration where you would have to make sure to bring your proof of residency, some form of ID. And, you know, it was a little challenging because especially with the software shutdown on the day that happened, both at 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., both like the times where people before work and after work, so that was like our large points of time. During those times it was sort of people were getting really frustrated because not only were we not able to process people fast, but people were coming in with like having to do race registration the day of, and everyone sort of understood that it was going to take about 20 minutes for each person who had that, because we have to check through Slack with the county clerk and then make sure that they have all of their forms of ID. And the thing with grace registration that I learned was that it's not bad. It's actually a really, really amazing sort of opportunity for people who like somehow weren't able to register beforehand or need to change some part of their registration. But for a large majority of people just didn't realize they could register before. And I think that was sort of a big problem where it not only like sort of holds back sometimes the line, it sort of like causes a lot of resentment for the process of voting, having these like long times for processing. And I think sort of that awareness of, oh, you can register before, I think that's something that we really need to improve with how we structure voting.
Yeah. So being able to register and vote the same day has benefits, and it has some problems associated with it. And I know, Kristine, you've worked the same day elections, and
Yeah.
what kind of experiences have you had with lines or people waiting to vote?
It depends a lot on the experience of the judges. This past time, we had a lot of people coming in and registering day of. We always do. And particularly with the slowdown in the processing, we formed two lines. And one line was, we're processing here, it's going to go slower. And this other line, it's going to go fast. And because you're already registered. That worked really, really well at our polling place, that we were able to change to that. It's difficult too with the two different types of ballots. When you use the express vote, only one computer prints express vote, another computer prints full ballots. But we found a workaround to that too, so that we could process people through more quickly. But I think, yeah, it makes it a lot more work and it slows things down. But almost to the person, when they come in and register to vote, the pride you see in those people that they are now a registered voter and they're going to get to vote is wonderful. And it's what makes being an election judge, it makes it rewarding. So yeah, it slows it down. I wish more of them registered ahead of time, but it's just part of the process.
Well, of course, Anne can tell you that registering people to vote is one of our major activities prior to the election. So we try. Holly?
Yeah, I'll just add to what I agree so much with the Diza and Kristine said. For us, I think from my experience has been, it's the problem is people would think they were registered and they weren't, or they weren't in the right place. You know, that they had. So the message is you could vote anywhere, which is great. So you don't need to. So the computer will create the ballot type that you need, so you don't have hundreds of different kinds of ballots sitting into. However, a lot of people, and we got some angry people, they said, we were told we could vote anywhere. And here I am. And I registered in Northbrook, Illinois. And it's like, you're registered, but you have to be registered in Champaign County to vote in Champaign County. You don't have to go to a particular polling place. But that was for us, that was the problem. It's not so much, from my experience, was that people, might have been, they'd come in and they would just be flabbergasted that they didn't come up in the system, or they'd be flabbergasted, or they would tell us that they give us the wrong address. They go, oh, I moved. So they'd have if they moved, they could have a different ballot type. And trying to sort out the proper documentation for getting the proper ballot type, they had to have some documentation within 30 days. And we had people just clumped over on one corner, scrolling through their phones, trying to find a lease or a bill or a Amazon. So we even take things on the phone, but that was very difficult. And I think there was a sort of romanticizing election day, and people would get dressed up in red, white, and blue and go out for lunch. And it's not like that. The minute voting opens, people should go to early voting, because the process of getting somebody re-registered or registered properly, not just first-time voters, but people who have moved or have changed their names or have is very time consuming, and that's what really slowed people down. And I think so my experience wasn't so much with first-time voters and registering them to vote for the first time, but clarifying their ballot type based on up-to-date information.
So you've all talked about some of the problems that you faced during while you were an election judge. So would you recommend to people that they do this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sorry, my light is so big. I'm in a I'm in Washington, beaming in from Washington DC, and I'm just terrible light in this room. Uh, I feel like, so one thing I can do, we if nothing else, we must keep elections. It's part of our democracy, and if people don't, and it's not volunteer, we do get paid. So it's not just voluntary. We do get a modest stipend, which is very nice. So it is a paid position, and but if we're not, people at the polls to register people and do this. We need people at the to keep voting going. It's really essential.
One of the things about the election process is that it's always a Republican and Democrat paired together. And do you find that there are tensions, or there problems, or what is the experience of working with someone from the other parties that maybe?
Being the Republican judge here, I have never had an issue where, especially with other judges,
right,
where anyone treated me any different than anyone else, just as I would not treat anyone else differently. It is a fun experience. It's rewarding. When you work election day, it's exhausting. But boy, when you get home and you're done, you feel like you've done something really good.
right.
And no, I've never had another election judge. I've never even had a voter say anything derogatory toward me because of what I am representing as an election judge. For the most part, everyone who comes in to a polling place is positive and ready to do their part in a democracy.
Okay. And Diza, one question for you. Have you managed to persuade any other students to become election judges?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I'm sort of happy about from this past election, was that I was able to sort of get a lot of my friends to do it. And it was sort of one of those things where I was sort of seeing the things where I was like, oh, people really need to sort of step up and take this job, because there really is a lack of sort of election judges. I don't know, one thing that stuck out with me really like really hard was that on election day there was this, after the holdup, and people were really unhappy, and just like, they were just like, I just want to vote, I want to leave this place, I need to go to work. This one girl came in and she was like, here's my stuff, I really need to hurry out. What has taken so long? And we were like, there's a lot of people, we don't have enough election judges. There's like, we didn't have a Republican election judge at our place, so we were sort of having to slow down everything by like 30 minutes. And she just like, when she couldn't find her proof of residency, she just like started crying, and she was really emotional about how it needs to be done better. And she was like, is there something I can do to help this? And she registered, she volunteered to be an election judge for the next election right there after voting.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sort of one of those things where I was like, wow, it's really important that people are doing this. And I think just the fact that someone who's so exhausted and so sort of fed up with the system and the people who were being the election judges was like, you know what, you're right, we do need to all step in. I think students at my school are seeing that, and I think a lot of people who have stepped in and really done their part have seen that. So I like that.
So, Anne, I bet you know more about becoming an election judge than I do. Do you want to sort of fill us in on some of the details about what to do?
Well, it's really very simple. You go to the county clerk's website and you fill out a short application form. You need to be, help me with these rules, Kristine and Holly. It's you need to be a junior or senior in high school, if you're in high school, and hold a certain grade point average and get support from your parents or the principal. If you're out of high school, you just need to be a registered voter and 18. and you can apply to be an election judge. You do take about 4 hours of online training so that you learn the basics of all of the kinds of circumstances that you're going to experience. And that training is very helpful. The best part is when you're assigned to serve with other election judges, you learn so much from them as you're working through specific situations where you consult with each other. It doesn't matter which party you're representing,
Right.
but that consultation and support that you get from the other judges is really great. So it's a simple application on the county clerk's website, about 4 hours of online training that you do on your own time, and then you're assigned to a location. You can request one, that's convenient for you, and the office tries to accommodate that to the extent that they can. And there you go. But you learn so much on the job as well. I'm sure Holly and Kristine and Diza, you'd all agree with me on that.
I'll just add one thing, and that right before the very first time I did it, there's typically some, especially right before a big election, in-person training as well. And there's generally opportunities for in-person training, and I found those in-person sessions really helpful as well. And the first few times I did it, I was so profoundly grateful for the more seasoned judges, because they kind of get you through. But that's why it's great to work early voting, because so over the course of the time doing early voting, it's slow and steady, and all those little things come up, like where you need an affidavit because somebody didn't bring in somebody said they never got their ballot, but it was mailed. You have to have affidavits, and you have where somebody will surrender their ballot because they want to vote in person, or somebody needs assistance at the poll, and that's why you need a Democratic and Republican judge, or you're not sure if a signature doesn't match, or what really accounts for a document that proves that they've been living somewhere for 30 days. So it's really helpful. The other judges are great. And then there's the Slack. There's this ongoing, this really awesome software called Slack, which a lot of people use at work anyway, but you get fairly instantaneous. You can type in any question to like a central control. There's like mission control at I guess at Brookings, when people will answer you, the clerk's office will answer quickly.
Yeah. For anyone listening who's thinking about becoming an election judge, first of all, you are really, really needed, and you are very appreciated. There is training that gives you a really good background on what you need to do, but they are never going to put you somewhere where you're the only person there that knows. And there'll always be someone who can help you answer questions. And then the training manuals are also always there. Slack, like you said, is always there. So you're never going to be left trying to figure it out on your own. There is a very specific process. We follow that process to the letter, and that's what you do. It's very simple, and it's very rewarding. And I've made some wonderful friends doing it too.
Mm-hmm. So, and then sort of a final note, there's been so much talk about concern about the security of elections, and what does your experience tell you about that? Diza, you want to start, and then Holly, and then Kristine?
Sure. So I don't know, I guess I've seen a lot of sort of concern about how it works, and because when you think about it, it feels like there are a lot of human error involved in it, where it's like, well, someone sort of checks the initials on the top of your ballot. So what if they're checking your ballot and then they're trying to shift things? But in reality, sort of doing it yourself, you sort of realize that there's just so many rules and so many guidelines, and all of the election judges are really sort of passionate and doing it correctly, and they all want it to work smoothly, because any little human error will sort of mean like 30 more minutes after closing, where you're sort of like trying to fix everything out, because you want it to be correct in the end. Everyone's goal is accuracy, not speed. And so I think sort of having done it, you sort of realize that yes, there is human error because there's people, but it's never sort of just careless, and it's never left as it is, and everyone is very passionate in doing everything correctly and getting everything getting everything correctly, at least in the end. And so it makes me feel more secure about it all, where it's like, yeah, someone might sort of like, someone might see my ballot accidentally if I accidentally show it to them instead of hiding it within the folder when I show them my initials. But you can, having had that experience, you really acknowledge, yeah, there's not much that they can do, and they follow rules, and everyone who's an election judge wants accuracy. So I think that really helped.
Holly?
Yeah, so what I learned, I think, from this is it is virtually impossible to commit fraud in the election. I mean, it is so difficult to get that darn printer to print out that ballot. I mean, and you cannot in the tabulator. I mean, you would have to have hundreds of people collaborating to. You can't trick the system. It is brilliant. It is so well done. And I think people don't believe that. If you once you're an election judge, you'll just see how incredibly it's very precise. And I mean it's very precise, and I think elections are very safe.
Mhm. And
That's what I
Kristine?
came with.
Yeah, we all hear so much rhetoric about how elections are not safe and all these things that are happening. And having been an election judge for many years now, I just wonder what planet these people are from, because that's not what the elections are like. And um, I challenge anyone who is vocal that the elections are rigged, that there's problems with the election, to become an election judge wherever they live and find out what it's really like, because it is an amazing process. And it makes me proud to be part of it, and proud that it works.
I think it's too late to become an election judge for the April election. Is that right, Anne?
It would be pretty late, but there's no reason not to contact the county clerk's office to see if they are still in need of judges for now, because the training is 4 hours, and that's not a lot of time for us to spend. And as Holly pointed out, you can ask to be an election judge during early voting, which is less pressure filled, shall we say, than election day. And that is a great place to start. That's how I started. So I'd say if people are interested, call the county clerk's office and ask if they still have needs, and go from there.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank you all for this part of the program. It was, I hope we inspire some people to go ahead and volunteer. And at this point, we're going to come to the second part, which means that you guys will disappear and we'll bring up the mayor. So yes, Holly.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yes, I agree. And I agree with what all the other judges said, and we hadn't collaborated in advance. So I totally agree with what they said. There's a question there's a couple questions about voting in the chat. I just wanted to draw, do high school election judges have to state their affiliation to a political party since they're not old enough to vote? I personally don't recall signing up as a judge. But you did. Then you declare yourself. So I don't know the answer to that. Did you declare your a party? You did.
Yeah. So you sort of, I guess they just told me. It was at early voting, so it was like we were able to talk about it and figure it out. But the other judges were just telling me, like, you know what, since you can't vote, just like sort of just do what party you feel that you sort of feel more affiliated with, and sort of not like nothing serious where it's like you have to have some
Right,
a document that says it. You just sort of like,
right.
I was like, you know what, I feel more like I'm definitely more like this. So it was like, it was very informal in that way, but you also put it down when you sign up to be an election judge, I will say. So you do sort of put it in already, but it's like it's mostly an informal thing in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, James, I think you're back being the host. If you can promote our mayors to panelists, and we will start the second question. There's a second part. So while we're taking this short break, I want to mention something about another civic participation opportunity. You'll shortly get a email from the Champaign County League concerning a bill that's before Congress that's going to be voted on in sometime in very shortly, the next week or 2 weeks, and it's called the SAVE Act. And unlike sort of the name, what it is a change to how to register to vote that requires a lot more documentation in order to register to vote. And effectively, it would disenfranchise a lot of people who don't have multiple documentations, who have to request marriage certificates from other states or have to apply for a passport in order to get that kind of information. And so when you get this email, it will give you a link that you can contact your congressperson and urge them to vote against the SAVE Act. And so I really urge you to take this opportunity. Of course, it is one of the very important things that you can do as citizens is talk to your representatives. So now we have the second part, and we have Mayor Marlin, who is gracefully exiting her term, I guess. When is your last day in office, Diane?
May 5th.
May 5th, okay. And Deb, and you are you're still continuing, and so
I'm midway through a term.
Yeah, midway through a term. And this reminds me that some one of these days we ought to have a program on how to become an elected official, or why would you want to, or something like that, because certainly this kind of civic participation is really, really a commitment to democracy, to commit your time and your energy and your a lot of times emotions too. And so I want to thank you both for taking that, for doing that for us as citizens. So what I asked the mayors to talk about tonight was, what are the opportunities that the cities have that citizens can volunteer for? And Diane, do you want to start?
Sure. As far as volunteer opportunities, probably the most important would be a service on one of our boards and commissions. So here in Urbana, we have about 15 active boards and commissions, ranging from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, Building Safety Code Board of Appeals, Civilian Police Review Board, Historic Preservation, Human Rights, Planned Commission. That's one of our most active and truly impactful commissions right there. Sustainability Advisory, Urbana Arts and Culture. So we have a number of different boards and commissions. They have anywhere from 5 to 9 or 11 members, which, when they were set up, I'm like, what were they thinking with an 11-member commission? But that's how they were set up. And it adds up to about 110 volunteer seats to keep filled with community members for the most part. And terms range from 1 year, 3 years, up to 5 years.
And how do the people apply for these, and how are they appointed?
We have an application available on our website. So there's a standard application. People fill out the one that they're interested in, and then they come to me, and these are all appointed by the mayor, and I bring those appointments to the city council for approval.
And Deb, do you want to talk about the city of Champaign?
Sure. I was just Googling our website as Diane was speaking because I'm not as, I can't tell you exactly how many boards and commissions and slots we have. What I have in front of me is actually a list of the ones that are expiring in June. And so they will be open for possible appointments. And then also ones that are vacant. I will tell you most of the ones that are their term ends in June are people that I anticipate will probably request to be reappointed. Some of them filled partial terms the last time and haven't even served a full term. We don't have a whole lot of openings. Diane probably would agree with me that it is not always easy to recruit, and I would say that it ebbs and flows, but we are in a period right now where most things have people that are serving. Our big openings right now, we have a city historian, which was really a position that was created for Dan McCullum because he wanted to do that work and document the history of the city of Champaign. He decided he was done in 2018, and we have never found anybody else that wants to fill that role and do that important work. So if you know anybody who's interested in being a city historian, we'd love to find somebody to fill that. Our code review and appeals board, we are looking for a mechanical engineer, which is very specific, but that board actually by ordinance has specific people that have to fill specific roles. So we have home builders and mechanical technicians and commercial developers, and right now we are missing a mechanical engineer. Historic Preservation Commission, we have almost every seat is open, and I think that is a reflection of some frustration with the Champaign City Council not maybe acting the way that the Historic Preservation Commission wishes that we would when they make recommendations. And so I think we've got some board members who rolled off and decided not to be reappointed there. But if you're interested in that, we've got some seats that are open. And then we have an alternate on our Plan Commission. And other than that, all our other spots are full up. You can look at our website under City Council and boards and commissions. We accept applications on a rolling basis. So if you are interested in one, even if the seat isn't open, we will keep your application on file. And if the seat opens up, we would interview you, or if for some reason there's an issue with somebody who's serving and it's time for a change, we would interview you as well.
I'd like to mention one that I've been on the Champaign Library Board. I was on the library board many years.
Yes, we loved it.
Yeah, it was a very, very rewarding experience, and just to one of the major responsibilities of a library board is to hire a library director. And I can tell you that the last go around, we got one of the best library directors I've ever known. So it's very, very rewarding to walk into the library and see this building and know how hard all those people are working. But
I would say too, Trish, the thing about library board is that unlike most of our boards and commissions, I mean, they manage a budget as well. And so, you know, there's a separate levy for the library. And so they have an incredible amount of responsibility that is more than just kind of advise council. They are really an active board.
And that's true in Urbana too. And I have to say, the easiest position to fill is board for the library. Every time there's an opening, I get a dozen applications, and everyone wants to be on the library board because this community loves its libraries, as they should, because they're wonderful. So I use, I kind of mine the library board applications and call them up and say, hey, would you be interested in serving on this commission
I
instead?
do
Because
that too.
but yes, the libraries are, I have a great deal of responsibility.
Diane, I want to mention too, there is a citizen seat on Regional Planning Commission. It is the low income representative. You do not have to meet the low income standards if you work for an entity that serves that population. And so Regional Planning Commission is looking for somebody right now.
And what does
we're
the
both
Regional
on
Planning
that.
Commission do? Being its name is very uninformative. So what does the Regional Planning Commission do?
Oh my gosh, so many things. So RPC receives state and federal funding. I mean, they do some planning work, and not so much for the city of Champaign. I think they do a little bit for city of Urbana, mostly for our outlying smaller communities within the county. But Head Start is housed at the Regional Planning Commission. They have workforce development. Diane, jump in. They have so many different things.
Yeah, I think RPC should be renamed the Regional Service Commission, because they administer housing and rental support, food security. They have probably 300 or more 400 employees. Their budget is bigger than the city of Urbana's. They serve so many different roles in the community, and Deb mentioned Head Start. So much of it is service oriented, actually. And and for the city of Urbana, they're incredibly important. They helped, they're managing and administering our American Rescue Plan Act funds. We just don't have the capacity to do that in-house. They were tremendous help in planning for our partial special census. So we can draw and pay, we have agreements with them, but we can draw on the Regional Planning Commission to kind of extend the capacity of our staff. And so they're a tremendous resource in the county, and they're extremely vulnerable right now because they're almost 100% dependent upon grant funding. They do not have another source of revenue that's significant. So it's mostly federal and state grants. So it's a tremendously vulnerable time for them right now.
They do our long range transportation study for the county, which helps then bring in federal dollars for road needs throughout the county.
They were instrumental in helping write our grant proposal for the Florida Avenue reconstruction and the the multi-use path side thing. So it's just, they are the heroes in our county as far as supplementing, especially what smaller communities like ours can do.
And one of the other probably more active boards and commissions is the Planning Commission.
Oh.
And I know the Planning Commission, which can, what can you describe what your planning commissions do? They recommend platting and annexation agreements that go to the council. So they're very important in determining the future of cities.
Sure, and special use permits, if a development comes and wants a special use permit, they go to Plan Commission first. Right now, our Plan Commission has been just up to their necks in development of our comprehensive plan, which is the overarching document that guides development and land use and really the future of our city for the next 20 years. So we've been working on this since 2020. It got slowed down during COVID, but the Plan Commission now is in the final stages of review of our comprehensive plan. So this is one of the most important boards and commissions in our city, and we have actually one vacancy right right now. Some of the members on the Plan Commission are planners, they're architects. We have, but we have community members as well. Since I've become mayor, I've tried to broaden the backgrounds of the people serving on the Plan Commission, so it represents it's a better representation of our community. But yes, the Plan Commission is one of our most hardworking and critical commissions.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And we have an alternate seat.
That's open there and
Mhm.
doing much the same kind of thing. Although I think your comprehensive plan is still was
We're
adopted.
we're still good.
Yeah.
We
Ours
are
is-
working on
ours
a
is from-
downtown plan.
Ours is from 2005, so things have changed a little bit since then, so.
So you're working on a downtown plan that the parts of it like where the parking should be and what we should do with that big lot in front of on the corner of Neal and what that triangular lot.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and we are, our downtown plan is 20 years old, something like that, pretty close. So it was a great blueprint, but it is time for updating. And you can actually go online and participate and share your thoughts for the downtown plan if you're interested in doing that.
Mhm. Mhm. So the days of one-way streets and covered mallways.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you know, Bruce Knight always says, our planning director, he came like the year that was ripped out, and he did not have anything to do with putting it in.
Mhm. Well, I worked in the city building for 20 years, from about 1990 to 2010. When I first worked there, which is at the corner of Neal and University, there was 1 or 2 restaurants downtown. And after 5 o'clock, they were closed because there wasn't anybody. But now you can't get a parking place. And it's really just a very wonderful, wonderful place to live and work. And Urbana, I know, has lots of different downtown activities and very active.
Great restaurants.
Yeah, great restaurants and festivals too, I think.
We have 7 new or expanded businesses in the last 3 months in Urbana, most of them downtown. So,
Wow.
and 5 more in the pipeline.
Wow. That's coming off of the COVID. There's some pent up demand, I guess.
Well, and as in Champaign, it's the result of incredibly hard work over a number of years, because everyone always says, well, wow, that happened fast. And it's like, no, that took 5 or 10 years.
Right.
You just didn't see
Absolutely.
it until today.
Yeah.
So let's, I didn't prep you guys on this topic, but can you talk a little bit about being an elected official and what made you decide to do that? And I know both of you have had multiple terms in office. So can you talk a little bit about?
I'll let Diane go first because she's about to retire from it all.
Yeah, I've been an elected official in Urbana for 16 years, 8 on the city council, 8 as mayor. And before that, I was a volunteer almost since the day I arrived here on campus as an 18-year-old. So I've had a very long history of being involved in the city of Urbana. But I think at the heart of it for me, it was, I was raised as a volunteer, and I just felt I wanted to give back to my community and serve the community. And there are many different ways to serve, both as a volunteer, but being an elected official is another step ahead of that. And so it's been a wonderful long journey, and I'm proud of what we've done. And we're ready to transition to the next administration. But it's being a mayor is the best job I've ever had. It's the most rewarding, but I will say it is the absolute hardest job I have ever had. So it's all of those things.
It is all of those things. I've been an elected official for about 30 years. I started on the county board, which is, I think, where I met Trish Crowley. My mom was actually on the county board and then moved to become circuit clerk, and I ran for her county board seat. I spent 14 years on the county board, including as vice chair of the county board, and then was redistricted in a way where I was representing rural parts of our county, but I lived smack dab in the middle of the city of Champaign. And I decided that city council was probably a better fit for me because I like representing my friends and neighbors. I like being stopped when I'm at the grocery store to talk about whatever's happening in our community. And that was hard to do when I was representing people who lived 20 miles away from me. And so was appointed originally to the city council. We had someone who moved away, Kathy Ennan, I think. And then ran, and I've been at the city of Champaign for 18 years, 10 as mayor. And I would say that, you know, to be an elected official, whether it's mayor or anything else in a community our size, you have to be prepared to really, for it to be kind of a part of your daily life. There's no getting away from it, and I don't say that in a bad way. It's just it is a part of who you are, and you can't differentiate and sort of be like, well, I'm on my personal time, I'm going to do this. Whatever you do it's the mayor doing it or the elected official doing it, and so you have to be prepared for that going in. But it is incredibly rewarding. It's incredibly tough. And we have had a lot of both, I would say, as I think about the time that Diane and I have had the pleasure to serve together. We've had some really rewarding things. But we lived through COVID and we lived through civil unrest, and we are now starting to sort of climb out of that economic downturn that came from COVID, and we have a whole host of other things that are hitting us from the federal government.
Yeah, I think I think we're entering some we are in some very challenging times. So,
and I want to say, it only works because we have people who volunteer to do these hard jobs. And so I really want to congratulate both of you who are League of Women Voter members.
We are.
And say, you know, this is what makes democracy work, right? That people, citizens, step up and do these jobs that need to be done by citizens, you know, not a bureaucracy. However important bureaucracy is as a lifetime bureaucrat, I could say.
And I would have to say that I believe local government is the most important form of government, because as Deb mentioned, you run into your constituents every day, and it's not usually, you know, you do have some people in city council chambers, but you also have the opportunity for people to speak to you outside of City Hall, and that's where they're most uncomfortable. So I always have made it a point of doing as many activities, events, and being present in the community as I can, and in all parts of the community. And that's where you hear from the people. And that's what I value the most, because I get a sense of what the broad community is thinking and feeling. And I appreciate that. And it's truly a privilege. It's been a privilege.
Well, thank you very much for agreeing to do this. And I think the audience, and we are recording it, of course, so it'll be available on YouTube forever.
That's how it is.
I want to give 2 plugs, though. I want to say that serving on boards and commissions is a great way to get to know city government if you're thinking you may want to run. But then I also just want to say that particularly in our community, it is really easy to connect up with people who are willing to show you the ropes and teach you how to do it. And so if you are interested in running for office, you know, I'm going to volunteer Diane too, but I would say, you know, contact us, because, you know, we can either help you ourselves or get you connected with the right people who can help you and, you know, walk you through that first process of getting petitions and getting on the ballot and figuring out what you need to do to campaign. because I think part of what we try to do is demystify it so more people will do it.
Mhm. Okay, and it's not an easy time to be an elected official, I know. So thank you both. Thank you both.
I meant to say at the beginning to thank the election judges for your service. That's incredibly important. And to the League of Women Voters for the candidate forums. We, of course, had an election
Yeah.
yesterday in Urbana. We had more candidate forums than ever in history that I can remember. And the League was part of that process as well. So thank you for promoting civic engagement the way you do.
It's
And everybody vote April 1st.
But I just want to say again, it's everybody's job to be involved in their
Yes, it
government.
is.
And there's all these different ways that you can do that. So thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.